No one knew how it started, only that the bride, the quiet, graceful woman everyone admired, was now standing in the middle of the hall, her dress ripped, her eyes cold, surrounded by the groom's family on the floor. But what could push a woman to fight her husband's entire family on her own wedding day? Before we dive into what really happened, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click the subscribe button so you never miss stories like this. It was early October in a small town in Pennsylvania. Emma and Ryan had been sweethearts since high school, the kind of couple everyone thought would last. On a crisp Saturday afternoon, their childhood friends and families gathered in a whitewashed banquet hall draped with fairy lights. The air smelled of fresh flowers, and laughter echoed over soft music. Everything was supposed to be perfect. But 20 minutes into the reception, something snapped. Chairs overturned. Screams filled the room. Ryan's sister Claire was on the floor crying. His mother was shouting into Emma's face. Emma's veil was torn, her dress stained with red wine. Or was it blood? Ryan stood frozen, his eyes wide, unable to stop what had erupted. No one expected it. Emma never raised her voice in public, but she had been keeping secrets. Emma remembered the smell of her mother's perfume the night she cried after a fight with Ryan. She remembered empty phone calls, late nights, and the silent tension growing between them. She believed love would solve everything. Ryan believed family always came first. The day had started with Emma's quiet confidence, thankful for love and trust. But by the time she walked into that hall, she carried something darker. The memory of a fight 6 months earlier. She had found a series of voicemails on Ryan's phone, his mother's voice, furious, demanding money for a business she said Ryan had promised. Ryan denied everything. Emma wanted proof. They argued for hours. She begged him to stand up to his family. He wouldn't. Now the confrontation had reached its boiling point. Claire accused Emma of changing her fiancé, of turning him against his own blood. Ryan's mother claimed Emma had lied about her past, about her intentions. Emma stood firm. "You never saw me when I was on my own. You never asked if I was scared." Claire screamed in response, "You're tearing this family apart." A waiter backed away, cringing. By the time the police sirens arrived, Emma was kneeling beside Claire, cradling her arm, tears of anger and shame on her face. Ryan stood behind them, his expression hollow. He realized in that moment that his loyalty had become a battleground. 6 months later, Emma and Ryan divorced quietly. Ryan moved in with his mother. Claire barely speaks to him. Emma left town, started a small bakery, and every October she remembers what love cost her. What would you do if you found out your partner was keeping secrets you never asked for? Would you stand up to their family, or walk away for good? Before we explore what came next, tell us, whose side do you feel for more, Emma or Ryan? And how would you react if it happened to you? Amara Lewis was 29, a nurse from a quiet little town where everyone knew each other by name. She grew up in a modest home with her mother, Ruth, a woman who taught her that kindness was worth more than wealth, and that love should never make you feel small. Amara had seen enough heartbreak in the hospital corridors to know that life could change in a heartbeat. But she still believed in love, the kind that stayed, healed, and protected. Then came Desmond Cole, 33, confident, charming, and the son of one of the wealthiest families in the state. They met on a stormy night when Desmond rushed his father into the ER after a heart attack. Amara was the attending nurse, calm under pressure, gentle in her care. Their eyes met over the hum of machines, and for a moment, everything else fell away. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, but it did. In the days that followed, Desmond couldn't stop thinking about her. He sent flowers to the hospital, asked her to dinner, and told her she made him feel human again. Amara hesitated. She wasn't used to men with drivers, tailored suits, or penthouse views, but something about his sincerity disarmed her. Maybe, she thought, this was the beginning of something pure. What she didn't know was that Desmond's family had already found out about her, and they didn't approve. His mother, Victoria Cole, came from old money. To her, titles and lineage mattered. "A nurse?" she scoffed to her friends at brunch. "Not good enough for a Cole." But Desmond didn't care, or at least that's what he told Amara. He took her to dinners where everyone whispered. He held her hand in front of people who rolled their eyes. He told her love would be enough. And for a while, it was. Amara believed that love could conquer pride, until she learned some love stories hide deeper wounds. Because behind Desmond's easy smile and affectionate words, there were silences too long, calls too private, and attention she couldn't quite name. His mother's cold stares at family dinners told her everything she needed to know. She would never belong. His sister Clarissa gossiped behind her back, whispering that Amara was playing nurse to the wrong man. But what hurt most wasn't their judgment. It was Desmond's silence when she needed him to defend her. She convinced herself he was just trying to keep the peace. But deep down, a small voice kept asking, if peace meant her pain, was it really love? Still, she stayed, because when Desmond looked at her, she saw the man she wanted to believe in. She told herself that one day, his family would see her heart and realize she was good enough. What she didn't know was that Desmond was keeping a secret that would destroy everything she thought they had built. And as she prepared to walk down the aisle months later, with the weight of 1,000 eyes watching, she had no idea that secret was about to reveal itself in front of everyone. Desmond's family was the kind that cared more about reputation than reality. Every dinner was a performance, every smile rehearsed. His mother, Victoria, ruled the household like a queen guarding her crown, and her children, Desmond and his sister Clarissa, played their roles perfectly. They were the Coles, after all, and the Coles didn't bend for anyone, especially not for a small-town nurse who didn't come from their kind of people. Amara tried to fit in. She wore the dresses Victoria suggested, learned which fork to use at their dinner parties, and smiled through every condescending compliment. But the more she tried, the more invisible she became. She noticed how, in family photos, someone would subtly step between her and Desmond, cropping her out of the frame without even realizing it, or maybe on purpose. When Victoria pulled her aside one evening and whispered, "Don't embarrass us at the wedding," Amara forced a smile, her throat tightening. She went home that night and cried quietly so Desmond wouldn't hear. Her mother, Ruth, saw the cracks first. "Baby," she said softly one night, "love shouldn't make you feel like you have to earn your place." But Amara brushed it off. "You don't know them like I do, Mama. They'll come around." Ruth sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from knowing your child is walking straight into something you can't protect them from. Desmond seemed distant, preoccupied with the wedding plans and his family's endless expectations. He reassured Amara that everything was fine, that his mother just needed time to adjust, but deep down, she could feel it, that quiet tension, like a storm waiting to break. Then one morning, 3 weeks before the wedding, a plain envelope appeared in her mailbox. No name, no return address, just her name written in shaky handwriting. She stared at it for a long time before slipping it into her purse. Something about it felt wrong. That evening, she almost told Desmond, but his mother had just called about seating arrangements, and she didn't want to cause more tension. So she tucked it away in the drawer beside her bedside lamp, promising herself she'd look at it later. Days turned into nights, and the envelope remained unopened. Amara convinced herself it was nothing, maybe a misplaced invitation, maybe a mistake. But sometimes when she couldn't sleep, she'd glance at that drawer and feel her heart race for reasons she couldn't explain, because somewhere inside, she knew that envelope was meant for her, and that it carried something she wasn't ready to see. She thought marrying him meant becoming part of a family. She didn't know she was walking into a battlefield, and inside that envelope was something no bride should ever see, but she wouldn't open it until the day she said, "I do." The morning of the wedding, the sky was a soft shade of gold, the kind of mourning that looked like peace but felt like pressure. Amara's hands trembled as she tried to fasten her earrings. Around her, bridesmaids whispered, cameras flashed, and somewhere down the hall, her mother's voice floated like a prayer. She smiled when people entered, laughed when someone made a joke, but inside, her chest was tight, her heart uneasy. Maybe it was nerves, or maybe it was everything she had ignored finally catching up to her. The memories came back in flashes, arguments over the smallest details. Desmond's mother insisting on a private guest list, claiming, "We can't have too many of your relatives." His sister, Clarissa, rejecting Amara's choice of flowers, saying they didn't photograph well. Even her wedding dress had been altered without her consent. More elegant, Victoria had said, though Amara barely recognized herself in it. Each time, Desmond told her to let it go. They just want the day to be perfect, he'd said. But whose definition of perfect was it? Not hers. As she stood before the mirror, her mother entered quietly, holding a small bracelet Amara had worn as a child. Ruth clasped it around her wrist and whispered, "If you ever feel disrespected, remember who you are." Amara nodded, but her throat tightened. Her mother left, and for a moment the room was silent, just her and her reflection. That's when she saw it again, the envelope. It had fallen out of her bag, the corner peeking from beneath the vanity. She stared at it, frozen. She could feel her pulse in her fingertips as she picked it up. The paper felt heavier now, almost damp with time and worry. Slowly, she broke the seal. Inside were photographs, crisp, recent, cruel. Desmond, smiling, holding another woman. The date stamped in the corner, 2 weeks ago. The same week he'd been away for business. Her heart sank, but her face didn't move. Her breath hitched, but no tears fell. He wasn't just unfaithful. He lied to her, to everyone, and his family helped cover it up. Every strange glance, every secret conversation, every whisper she had brushed aside. It all made sense now. The Coles weren't protecting a wedding. They were protecting an image. Amara looked back at her reflection. The woman staring at her wasn't the same nurse from the small town anymore. This woman's eyes were colder, steadier, older. She wiped the corners of her eyes, straightened her veil, and whispered to herself, "Not today." The ceremony began beneath a white canopy draped in silk and flowers, the kind of place where dreams were supposed to live. Soft music filled the air, cameras clicked, and guests smiled as Amara appeared at the end of the aisle. Her dress shimmered under the afternoon light, but her face was unreadable, calm, composed, distant. To most, she looked like a bride holding back tears of joy. Only her mother noticed the quiet storm behind her eyes. Desmond stood at the altar, handsome and confident, but when his gaze met hers, he faltered. She held his eyes for only a second before looking away. The closer she walked, the heavier the silence became. Around them, Desmond's family exchanged quick, nervous glances. His mother clutched her pearls, whispering something to Clarissa, who forced a smile for the cameras. The priest began to speak, his voice steady and warm, unaware of the truth hanging in the air like smoke. Desmond smiled for the crowd, took her hand, and repeated his vows with practiced ease. "I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you." Each word sounded beautiful, hollow, rehearsed. No one could see it then, but every word, every promise, every smile was a countdown. When it was Amara's turn, the priest turned to her gently. "Do you, Amara Lewis, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" The hall went quiet. The air felt thick. For a moment she didn't answer. Desmond squeezed her hand slightly, a silent plea. Her lips parted, but instead of saying, "I do," she took a deep breath and looked straight at him. "Desmond," she said softly, her voice clear enough for everyone to hear, "before I answer, tell everyone about her." Gasps rippled through the room. The crowd stirred, confused. The music stopped. Desmond's smile vanished. His face went pale. His mother shot up from her seat, shouting, "End this nonsense right now!" The priest stepped back, unsure of what to do. The guests leaned forward, whispering, phones already raised to record. Amara's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the ring on her finger. She slid it off slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "I won't marry a liar," she said quietly, the weight of her words cutting through the silence. And just like that, the perfect wedding the Coles had spent months creating began to unravel, one truth at a time. For a moment, no one moved. The air inside the hall felt frozen, suspended between disbelief and outrage. Then, without warning, Desmond's sister, Clarissa, lunged forward, her heels clattering against the marble floor. She shoved Amara hard, sending her stumbling back against a chair. Gasps filled the room as the silence shattered. Victoria, Desmond's mother, screamed across the aisle, her voice sharp as glass. "You ungrateful girl! You think you can humiliate us like this, you gold digger!" Desmond tried to reach for his mother to calm her down, but she pushed his hand away. "Don't touch me, Desmond. She's made a fool of this family." His words caught in his throat. He looked helpless, caught between the woman he loved and the family that controlled him. Around them, guests began to whisper, cameras flashing, phones lifted high. The soft music that once filled the room had turned into chaos. What started as whispers became war. And Amara, the quiet nurse, fought back. Clarissa came at her again, but this time Amara didn't retreat. She stepped aside, steady, her voice trembling but firm. "Don't touch me again," she warned. Victoria hurled another insult, but Amara's eyes were steady now, unflinching. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't crying. Every movement was deliberate, every word measured. Someone tried to pull Clarissa back, and in the struggle, a table tipped over, glasses shattered, chairs crashed to the ground. People rushed to separate them, hands grabbing, voices rising, a scene of chaos captured on every phone in the room. But through it all, Amara stood tall. Her hair was undone, her dress torn, but her eyes, those same gentle eyes that once looked at Desmond with love, were unrecognizable now. Calm, cold, resolute. She wasn't fighting for pride. She was fighting for her dignity. Somewhere in the corner, Ruth, her mother, stood frozen, tears in her eyes, both terrified and proud. And as police sirens began to wail faintly in the distance, guests whispered to one another, "She's ruined everything." But they were wrong. Amara hadn't ruined anything. She had simply stopped pretending. The cameras kept rolling. The whispers turned into headlines. And yet, as she stood among the wreckage of what should have been the happiest day of her life, Amara knew this wasn't the real fight she was about to face. When the police arrived, the hall was a mess. Flowers crushed underfoot, champagne spilled across white linens, and the once perfect decorations hanging loose like the end of a forgotten celebration. Guests were shaken, whispering in corners, their phones still recording what had just unfolded. Desmond stood at the center of it all, his tie undone, his face pale. He tried to reach Amara, his voice low, desperate. "Please," he said, "just let me explain." But Amara wouldn't look at him. The man who once promised her forever now looked like a stranger. He begged the officers to give them a moment alone, and reluctantly they did. In the silence that followed, Desmond's voice cracked. "I never wanted this to happen," he said. But the truth was already unraveling faster than his excuses could keep up. Because just before the police arrived, one of the guests, a friend of the family, had whispered something to Amara that made her knees go weak. "They knew," the woman said quietly. "His mother, his sister, they all knew about the affair. They paid her to leave town, to keep quiet until after the wedding." Amara's breath caught. It all made sense now. The rushed engagement, the secrecy, the pressure to keep the family image. The wedding wasn't about love, it was about legacy. Desmond's father's business had been faltering, and Victoria had found a way to secure a merger. With the Cole name, Desmond's marriage was meant to seal the deal. Amara was never chosen for love, she was chosen for convenience. She realized she was never meant to be a wife, just a pawn. The weight of it hit her like a wave. Every moment she had fought to belong, every compromise she'd made, every tear she'd hidden, it had all been for a lie. Her hands trembled as she covered her face, her body shaking from the betrayal. For the first time, Desmond saw her break, not out of weakness, but out of disbelief that love could be so cruelly manufactured. Her mother rushed to her side, wrapping her arms around her as Amara sobbed quietly against her shoulder. "You didn't ruin your wedding," Ruth whispered softly. "You saved your life." And in that moment, the truth settled in. Freedom sometimes comes wrapped in heartbreak. But just as she began to steady her breath, someone cleared their throat behind her. A voice she didn't recognize, calm but firm, spoke up from across the hall. "There's something else she needs to know." Everyone turned. Amara lifted her head slowly, her eyes red, her heart pounding, because something unexpected was about to happen. Someone else had stepped forward. From the back of the hall, a voice rose above the murmurs, steady, calm, but trembling with conviction. "That's enough." Every head turned. Standing near the entrance, Desmond's younger brother Elijah stepped forward. He was nothing like the rest of the Coles, quiet, reserved, always the one in the shadows. But that day, he walked into the light. "She's telling the truth," he said, his voice echoing through the broken silence. Desmond's mother froze mid-yell. "Elijah, stop talking right now." But he didn't. He looked straight at Amara, then at the guests, then at the police officers. They all knew about the affair. My mother, my sister, even my brother. They paid that woman to disappear. They wanted this wedding to happen no matter what, because it wasn't about love. It was about money. Gasps rippled through the crowd as phones lifted higher, recording every word. Elijah's voice trembled, but he didn't stop. I kept quiet because I was scared, but watching her, the woman my brother betrayed, take all the blame, I can't do it anymore. His words landed like thunder. Desmond tried to shout over him, but no one listened. Victoria's face went pale as guests began to whisper, cameras flashing wildly. And for the first time, the Cole family's carefully built image began to crumble, live, in front of everyone. He couldn't watch the woman his brother betrayed take all the blame. Within hours, the video hit social media. Clips of the confrontation flooded timelines under the headline, "Bride Fights Groom's Family at the Altar." Millions watched, commented, and shared. Some pitied Amara, others praised her courage, and across every platform, one message echoed. She had done what so many couldn't. She stood up for herself. By nightfall, the Cole family's reputation was in ruins. Business partners pulled out of deals, reporters camped outside their mansion, and Desmond's name trended for all the wrong reasons. As for Amara, she disappeared quietly. No interviews, no statements, no attention. She packed her bags, left the city, and went back to the small town where her story had begun. Away from the noise, the headlines, and the heartbreak, she found the one thing she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Months passed, and the chaos that once consumed Amara's life faded into the quiet rhythm of healing. The world had moved on, but her name still lingered in whispers and headlines, the nurse who walked away from a millionaire's wedding. Yet Amara didn't see herself as a symbol or a scandal. She was just a woman learning how to breathe again. Instead of hiding from what happened, she chose to transform it. She rented a small community space in her hometown and started something simple, a circle of chairs, a pot of coffee, and a sign that read, "Voices of Strength." Every week women came, some young, some older, each carrying their own story of betrayal, control, or heartbreak. They came to talk, to cry, to feel seen. Amara would listen, sometimes sharing her own story, not with bitterness, but with grace. Pain became her platform, she reflected one evening to a new member, her voice steady, eyes soft. What tried to break her made her unshakable. Soon word spread. Newspapers wrote about her quiet resilience. She was invited onto talk shows, asked to speak about strength, healing, and the courage to walk away from what doesn't serve you. But she never chased the spotlight. She returned home after every appearance, sat by her window with a cup of tea, and watched the sun rise. A small reminder that new beginnings don't need applause. Meanwhile, Desmond's life unraveled. His family's businesses collapsed under investigations and public scrutiny. His marriage, one he tried to rebuild for image, fell apart. The same world that once praised him now avoided his name, and in the silence of his downfall, he finally understood what Amara had been fighting for. Sometimes the fight isn't about winning, it's about walking away, with your dignity, your peace, and the strength to never look back. A year later, life had found a gentler rhythm for Amara. The scars were still there, but they had softened into something almost beautiful, proof that she had survived. That summer, she was invited to her best friend's wedding, a small ceremony in the countryside. The music, the laughter, the soft hum of joy. It all felt familiar, but in a way that didn't hurt anymore. As she sat among the guests, watching the bride walk down the aisle, she found herself smiling, not with envy, but with peace. After the ceremony, while guests mingled under the string lights, a man approached her, the wedding photographer. She recognized him instantly. He had been there on her wedding day, the one that never happened. He looked nervous, almost hesitant. "Miss Lewis," he began quietly, "there's something I think you should know." She tilted her head, curious. "About what?" He took a deep breath. "The woman in those photos, the ones that ended your wedding, she wasn't an affair." Amara froze. "What do you mean?" The man hesitated, glancing around before lowering his voice. "That woman was Desmond's cousin. His family staged those photos. They wanted to stop the wedding. They knew if you believed he cheated, you'd walk away on your own. They lied to you to break you." For a moment, Amara said nothing. The air seemed to vanish around her. All those months, the tears, the humiliation, the pain, all because of their manipulation. The truth didn't feel like relief. It felt like silence after a storm. Her heart ached not for what she lost, but for how deeply she had been controlled. So she wasn't betrayed by love, but by control. The photographer looked at her, waiting for anger, outrage, something, but instead, Amara just smiled, soft and calm. "Then I guess," she said gently, "I still made the right choice." She turned back toward the dance floor, where her best friend was laughing under the lights, and for the first time in a long while, Amara felt free, not because the truth had set her free, but because she had already chosen to be. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That day, Amara didn't just leave a man, she left behind every lie that tried to define her. She fought for herself, not out of anger, but out of freedom. And though she lost her wedding, she found something stronger than vows, self-respect. Because love without truth is just a beautiful cage, and she refused to live in one. So tell us, what would you have done in her place? Would you fight for your dignity, even if it meant fighting alone? If this story touched your heart, give it a like. Share it with someone who needs strength today. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us, some endings aren't losses, they're the start of becoming who you were meant to be.